Welcome to the Truth and Fertility podcast. My name is Haley and I am your host. I work at an OBGYN clinic where I teach women and couples how to chart their cycles so they can either achieve or avoid pregnancy and also to manage their fertility. I have a huge passion to teach women and couples about the beauty of their fertility and how the pill is never the answer to women's health. There's a lot of good and not so good information out there about fertility. And so my goal with this podcast is to help you sort out the truth from the weeds. I want to teach you how to chart your cycle and to reach your family planning goals while also maybe even possibly locating hormonal imbalances and to receive proper treatment. I want to help you get in the best hands that you can with the best doctors that you can to reach optimal reproductive health. So if you're ready to get on this journey with me to learn more about your reproductive system, how it was created and how it should be working, and the best medicine in order to make it work if it's not, then you are in the right place. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Truth and Fertility podcast. Today, I am just going to be going back to the basics, and I really just wanted to cover probably the most important piece of information that we can remember when we are talking about menstrual cycle health, just women's health in general. What is the most important thing to remember? The most important thing to remember is ovulation. Ovulation is so incredibly important for a healthy woman, for a healthy reproductive system, for a healthy menstrual cycle. Ovulation should be happening once every cycle, no matter how long your cycle is, whether it's that typical, 28-day perfect cycle, or if you have a longer cycle or a shorter cycle, you should be ovulating one time of that cycle. If a woman is not ovulating for whatever reason, whether it be she is on the pill, maybe the first line of combat for the pill is that it suppresses ovulation, right? But we know that ovulation is so important to signify a healthy reproductive system. And actually it goes so far as for in the United States, the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development actually calls the menstrual cycle the fifth vital sign. So we know vital signs are signs that our body gives us to tell us we are alive, right? And that we're doing well. So blood pressure, body temperature, heart rate, respiratory rate, right? These are the four main vital signs that you maybe get checked when you go to the doctor, right? Before you even get into the room, they check your weight, they check your temperature, they check your blood pressure, all of that good stuff. But ovulation is now being seen for women as this fifth vital sign. So if ovulation is not happening, unless you are obviously in a state where it shouldn't be happening, like if you are pregnant, if you're pregnant, you're not going to be ovulating because you already ovulated, which is why you're pregnant. Also, if you're breastfeeding, that's also a very natural way that your body will suppress ovulation for a time. But in all other circumstances, or if you are a young girl who hasn't hit puberty yet, or if you are in menopause, you're past your fertility years, you should be menstruating, you should be ovulating, and it should be happening at a very regular pace, a regular rate, right? It's called a cycle because our cycles should be cyclic. They happen over and over and over again, and it should be regular. This is a sign that our bodies are telling us that our reproductive system is healthy. And so if ovulation isn't happening, that is a sign that something is off. And so I wanted to get back to this basic idea of ovulation being a true vital sign. It is so, so important that you are ovulating, that a healthy woman in her reproductive years, a healthy woman should be ovulating. And this is the exact, I don't mean to get on my soapbox, but I'm going to get on it just for a second. So this is why the pill is just not good medicine, because it can help with symptoms. Absolutely. A lot of women do feel better when they're taking the birth control pill or whatever hormonal contraceptive it is. But it's not actually fixing the issue because of the fact that fixing the issue, fixing the hormonal issue that you are experiencing to be even put on birth control, aside from if it's just being used for birth control, I'm talking about if a woman is using it because she has irregular periods, painful periods, acne, whatever that reason is, right? For quote unquote medical purposes, she's taking the pill. What is it doing? It's actually suppressing ovulation. That's the first kind of mode of the birth control pill. Why? Because the birth control pill is a contraceptive, meaning if you want to have sex and not get pregnant, that would be the first thing that you would do if you were contraceptive minded, if you wanted to go that route, is suppress ovulation, which is exactly what the pill does. But it's never good medicine, because good medicine is getting to the root of the issue and actually healing it from the ground up. So if you're experiencing an unwanted symptom, let's actually get to the root of that issue rather than suppressing ovulation further, right? Like suppressing ovulation isn't healing you. It's actually harming you even more and probably delaying the issue, allowing the issue to get worse before it's actually identified, diagnosed, and treated. So, okay, I'll get off that soapbox now. I have plenty of other podcast episodes you can listen to about the pill and all that good stuff. But all of this to say that ovulation is just that important. I'm also just now realizing I should probably define ovulation for you if you are unsure of what this is. So ovulation is when an egg is released from the woman's ovary. And usually the ovaries take turns back and forth every cycle ovulating. You're only going to ovulate once every cycle. If you do ovulate a second or a third time, like this is where we would get fraternal twins or fraternal triplets, that second and third ovulation would not happen past 24 hours of the first ovulation. So you are only going to ovulate one day of every cycle. And it does not matter how long that cycle is, whether it's 25 days, 30 days, 100 days, no matter how many days it is, you're only going to ovulate for one day of that cycle, usually just one time with one egg being released. But again, in the off chance that there is a second or third egg, it's only going to happen within 24 hours of the first ovulation. So the other thing too that's important to remember is that sometimes we think that the period is the most important part of the cycle. And I'm not knocking it. It is a very important part of the cycle. But a period is reliant on ovulation. If ovulation is not regularly happening, then a true period is not regularly happening. Now, some women, we also kind of need to talk about, okay, what is a true period, right? Because some women will have some abnormal sloughing of the uterine lining, which is a period, right? The uterine lining is all of those blood cells that are being sloughed off the uterus, and that's the bleeding that you see. So a lot of women will have some unusual bleeding, especially if they have long and irregular cycles. Also, too, a woman who's on the pill is going to have a quote unquote period. It is not a period though. It is just a hormone, basically those hormones dropping, those synthetic hormones dropping and having a withdrawal bleed, a withdrawal of those hormones. So you're having this bleeding happening. But remember, a true period must follow ovulation. So you are only going to have a true period if you are ovulating. And so if you want to have that regular period, then you want to have that regular ovulation. That is so, so important, that ovulate. It's just everything about your cycle is everything is surrounded around ovulation. It is the main event. Okay. Also too, when I'm teaching women about, how to track their cycles, how to chart their fertility, everything that I am referring to, everything that I'm teaching them is really revolving around how do we locate ovulation for the sake of family planning, because ovulation around that time is going to be when a woman is actually fertile. So if she were to have intercourse around the time of ovulation, then there's a possibility for pregnancy, because ovulation happens, that egg is released, that egg is then viable to be fertilized by a sperm, bam, you have a baby. So if you are trying to avoid pregnancy, using a natural system, like the system that I teach in order to chart your cycle, then you would be avoiding intercourse during that time, around that fertile window, we call it, or around the time of ovulation. If you're trying to achieve pregnancy, you want to be focusing intercourse during that fertile window, right? A lot of times the couples that I'm seeing that are struggling with infertility, sometimes it truly is just because they don't know when that fertile window is. And once we can identify around the time of their ovulation, and they can actually time intercourse to be successful to get pregnant, oftentimes it just happens. Now, that's not the story for everyone. And sometimes there is more medical interference that has to come in, which is also great too and helpful. And I've also seen pregnancies come from that true medical help. NAPRO technology is a great way to start with that. I have another podcast. I'll link it in the show notes below. That would be a great kind of path of medicine to take if that is your story right now and you're struggling to get pregnant. But anyways, all this to say, a huge reason for charting naturally is to locate ovulation. Now, even aside from the family planning aspect though, and taking a look at how we can actually chart your cycle for the sake of medicine, for the sake of proper diagnosis and treatment, which is exactly what I do at the clinic that I work at, we're trying to identify ovulation because of that simple fact that it is a vital sign. If a woman is not ovulating, that means there is something wrong. That means there is some sort of hormonal imbalance. Maybe it's so far as to say that there's possible PCOS diagnosis, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. The ovaries are inflamed and enlarged. Possibly there's endometriosis. This is where that uterine lining, those cells that would be on the inside wall of the uterus, those cells or cells that are like it are now starting to grow on the outside of the uterus, maybe even sometimes on top of the ovaries or just in different places that they shouldn't be growing. That's endometriosis, right? There are other maybe more serious things that really do need that proper diagnosis and then therefore treatment of that. But if you are not ovulating, there is an underlying reason. There's a reason why that needs to be healed, that needs to be fixed. So let's just take that woman example of a woman who's having irregular cycles. Okay, she's having irregular periods. Remember what I said, a period is reliant on ovulation. So if she's having irregular periods, that means that she's having irregular ovulation. So what is the first thing that happens when you go to the doctor, just a typical doctor, and you say, I have irregular periods? They put you on the pill. And that is exactly what my story is. When I was 16, I was having irregular periods. I went to my doctor, no questions asked, no blood work done, nothing investigative done. It was just, what type of pill do you want? And as I've already said, the pill does not fix the issue, because if the issue is that you're not ovulating regularly, which means you're not having a period regularly, the pill is not going to quote unquote regulate your cycle or regulate your period. It's actually just pumping you with synthetic hormones in order to suppress ovulation and not even allow the process to happen as it naturally should be happening. We are essentially shutting down the reproductive system. Tell me how that is helping. Sure. And again, sure, it could be helping the symptoms, but it's not getting to the root issue. So the second the woman gets off the pill, those symptoms are going to come back and probably be even worse than they were before she got on the pill. Because when something is not treated right then and there, if something's left alone to kind of fend for itself, it's probably going to get worse before it gets any better. I said I wouldn't get on my soapbox, but you guys, I just can't help it because it's so important. It is so important to remember this. So if I were you and you're listening to this right now, and whether you have irregular cycles, painful periods, or you're trying to plan your family and you're struggling to get pregnant, or you're trying to plan your family and you're really wanting to avoid pregnancy in a very natural, holistic, dignified way, I have a solution for you. So if I were you, I would go to truthandfertility.com and I would book your intro session. I now have a way on my website to go straight to the website, book your intro session with me. It is an hour and a half deep dive into, I go through your anatomy and physiology, your hormones. We cover everything. And you may be thinking, oh, I already know all that stuff. I know how my body works. I know I have 2 ovaries. I know I have fallopian tubes. I know I have a uterus, all of that. Trust me, you will learn something new. Trust me. Almost every single time I give this intro session to anyone, they look at me and they say, why have I never been taught this? Why have I never known this? This is not just the typical sex talk that you get in your high school health class, right? This goes so much deeper into understanding how to appreciate the design, the such intricate design of the woman's body and of her fertility, and how it is so incredibly and beautifully complementary to the man's fertility and the man's body. It really is just truly amazing. So I promise you, you will learn a whole lot of something new. And then after that, I do go very deeply into, okay, with all of this information, this new information about my body, about these signs of fertility that my body shows me throughout my cycle, how do I actually plot that? How do I chart that? How do I get data out of that? To family plan, which would be great if you are married, if you're engaged, preparing for marriage, and if you're trying to plan your families, that's wonderful. Also, for the sake of medicine, I already mentioned NAPRO technology. It's short for natural procreative technology. This is a women's health science that really just gets deep into the root cause of what is giving you these unwanted symptoms, and let's heal it from the ground up. So again, I have a whole other podcast about that. I'll put everything in the show notes below. But with that being said, if you are having any unwanted symptoms, whether that be irregular periods, painful periods, infertility, whatever you might be struggling with, whether you are planning a family or not, let's say you're a single woman, there's no intention of planning families around this time, but you want to put your health first. You want to appreciate your fertility and the way that it's designed. You want to understand more about how your body works, understand your moods better, just be more in tune with your body and with yourself. It's also for you. This intro covers it all, and you will leave this intro session knowing the basics of how to chart your cycle. And it is completely with me. It's not a recording. It's not like I'm just, pre-recording this and sending it to you. Not that that's bad, but I'm telling you that this is a one-on-one or a two-on-one if you want your partner to be with you. This is a meeting with me to go deep dive into your fertility. So if you are interested in doing that, again, highly recommend it. Just in my own personal experience with learning how to chart, healing my own reproductive disorders, and having 3 kids because of it. I would not have my children if I had not learned how to chart as a single woman, mind you. So with all of that being said, truthandfertility.com. Please check it out. If you have any questions at all, I would be happy to chat with you beforehand for free, for sure. You can email me at haley@truthandfertility.com. I know there is a gazillion ways to spell Haley, so that's HALEY @truthandfertility.com. You can always contact me that way. I am also working on an Instagram. I have a very small love, huge hate relationship with social media, you guys. It's just so addicting and it's not good for me or my family, but in this space, it's kind of required. So I'm kind of starting the whole Instagram thing. We'll see how that goes. But you can also send me DMs through my Instagram handle, which is, again, Truth and Fertility. So everything is Truth and Fertility here. I would love to chat with you, to teach you how to chart your cycle and to really walk this journey with you. So truthandfertility.com. Ovulation, remember, it's the 5th vital sign. And if you are not ovulating, or you're ovulating irregularly, or you just want to understand when ovulation is happening. When can I expect my period because ovulation is happening? All of these questions will be answered in that intro session with me. So truthandfertility.com. It has been a blast talking to you guys today, and I will talk to you again next week. Thank you for listening to the Truth and Fertility podcast. If you are enjoying this content, it would be amazing if you could leave a 5-star review. That helps me tremendously to be able to continue to produce these episodes for you. Remember that these podcasts are available on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, and YouTube. And you can always go to my website, truthandfertility.com, to learn more. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.